All right. Welcome back to another episode of Eggs Liquidity. I hope I ran that whole thing right. Cito's usually the producer on this kind of stuff, so we're improvising a little bit here. Episode 81. This week we have got Connor from Enzo Finance. Cito's not going to be joining us today. He had an issue with a rental car, so he's having a lot of fun right now, I'm sure. Connor, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. And a great intro. Really enjoyed watching it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it gets me it always gets me in the mood before getting into a podcast. It's gets me all hype and stuff seeing my little duck profile picture running on there. Um cool. So yeah, like I said, thanks for joining us. We talked a little bit off podcast about some of your background and you've been in the space a while obviously. Would love to get a bit of a download on kind of what brought you to building Enzo in the first place, how you ended up in crypto, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, happy to do so. I can start at the beginning. So I first learned about Bitcoin in 2012, 2013. Originally, as I was just a hacker kid. I was building bot farms for RuneScape, World of Warcraft, leveling up these accounts, and also obtaining gold, ores, and so forth. And I was playing many different virtual games at the same time. So the way of selling gold in RuneScape, I would then sell into Bitcoin and then use that Bitcoin to then buy World of Warcraft gold. So that was essentially my first exposure from that. Over the years, I still stayed in contact with Bitcoin, but not that much. And then 2016 came around. I saw Ethereum launched, not directly myself, but through a university professor. So I was at university, it was during my thesis times, my dissertation times, like the last year project that you need to hand in to graduate university. And there was a topic on Bitcoin. I went to the professor and said, oh, I've been using Bitcoin for a couple of years. Maybe this could be a good fit for me. And he actually turned around and said, have you heard of Ethereum? I was like, what's Ethereum? What is this concept? What is it? And that was my first exposure to Ethereum. And for the last 8 years, I've been building full time in this ecosystem. And prior to starting Enso, I helped build a fully regulated and licensed crypto bank here in Switzerland. So it's called Signum. So I built cold storage, hot storage, secondary exchange, multi-sig infrastructure, a fully collateralized stablecoin with the Swiss franc and the Swiss National Bank. And during that time of working in this more, centralized crypto environment, DeFi summer was starting, and I fell in love with it. Balancer launched. I was finding token exploits and their token economical model to then get more rewards, and I went down this DeFi rabbit hole. Enso is very different from what it started as. Enso started as a social trading product. So I was investing into DeFi protocols, I was buying these tokens. Other people were like, wow, you're getting early into Avi tokens or certain pools and you're generating 10,000% APY. They want to get exposure to this. So friends, families, colleagues, and so forth. So Enso started off as a social trading product where I could create a strategy that other people could invest into and I would get a percentage of their performance. This didn't really find any product market fit. We found it really, really challenging to integrate all of DeFi. So we built maybe 15, 16 different DeFi integrations and our core contracts. We spent over $500,000 in audits for this. And we realized very quickly, DeFi moves so fast that if we need to spend months on integrations waiting for audit slots and paying 30, 40K for every integration to get audited, this does not scale. So we pivoted, rebuilt everything from scratch. And you can actually go and check our GitHub. We open sourced everything for free. We just said, here, you can build whatever you want on top of this version 1. We don't see a future in this architecture. The V2 was a DeFi super app where people could go to one application, interact with all DeFi protocols. And to be able to do this, we had to build a very clean architecture underneath that allowed us to interact with any smart contract on any EVM chain without needing to build manual integrations on chain. Launched that, no product market fit, we decided proactively to always find a product market fit before launching a token. That was kind of always our objective. I think too many projects in this industry make tokens their primary product, and I think it's really, really bad for the future of this industry. And whenever we launched this DeFi super app, other projects approached us and said, wow, we have a problem integrating all of DeFi. How did you do this? So we spun up an API. You can envision this as a DeFi middle layer, enabling application developers to embed DeFi primitives into their product without building these manual integrations themselves. And that's what you kind of know Enso as of today. I'm sure we're going to talk about the evolution of Enso, the intent engine, and kind of the full extent of where we're going to head.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. Yeah, 8 years is a long time. 8 years is longer than most of us have been here for sure. And to kind of see the evolution there and really have an emphasis on product market fit above all else as a builder is something that is surprisingly enough hard to find these days. You would think that in a very entrepreneurial space we'd find people trying to achieve product market fit above all else, but it seems like that's a secondary thought a lot of the time. So it's good to see someone with see a founder with that kind of focus. You in that same vein, we've talked a little bit about like kind of what crypto was like before and what it's like now, and kind of one of the things you alluded to was like trying to find fit or trying to find market interest in a token rather than a product or a technology, which is, obviously a lot of people on paper would agree that's kind of not the right way to do things. What are some things that are like kind of going on these days that you feel like we could or we should be doing better as an industry? Like, what are some things you've seen over the years that's like, you want to try and push back to something a little bit more like holistic with what you're doing with Enzo or just for the industry in general?
Build products, not white papers. Very simple. Just ship a product. Don't spend a year writing a white paper. Don't craft a narrative for a token launch. Ship products. And I think why we've not been able to do this thus far as an industry, one is because of the financial upside of people launching a token and doing an IPO within 1 year of establishing a company. In traditional finance, this is 8-9 years to be able to do that. That's one part. How do people get to that stage? One is people need to build manual integrations with every single DeFi protocol, every single NFT product, every single smart contract that lives on chain for their product, and then release that. And at that stage, maybe you've raised, let's say you raise a $4 million seed, and then you spend a year building this and then release it. Most first-time founders take a year and a half because it's fresh and it's new. That stage, you probably burned nearly through your $4 million, about 3.2, so you've got 800K left, and you say, shit, I've spent $3.2 million to spend a year and a half building this product. I don't have any users. Okay, so I'm going to launch a token on top of this. And I think this is the trap that we start to fall in an industry. And kind of what a solution of this, one is Enso, right? But there can be many different other Ensos, which is we need tools that enable developers to build products faster, to be able to ship products, to find product market fit. And then over time, once they have product market fit, to then launch a token on top. So I think this is kind of the progression and change we need to make as an industry. And I think, that this can go multi-layered, right? You've got certain VCs investing at very inflated valuations, pre-product, pre-testing it. I think this doesn't help the industry as well. But I think we need to go to the entrepreneurs, we need to go to the developers, the indie hackers, the people that do want to build products and give them the tools to be able to do this. And kind of how this is shaped over the last 8 years, 8 years ago, no one spoke about tokens. Tokens didn't exist. Like there was no ERC20 standard. You didn't have an IDE plugin in Visual Studio Code. You didn't have Sublime Text. You didn't have Atom. You had Mist Wallet. Mist Wallet was one, your mining toolkit. You would run your nodes inside to mine on Ethereum mainnet or testnet. Then you had your IDE to write Solidity inside as well. And it was also your wallet, right? So back then, you were only focused on building smart contracts. What did that mean? In 2017 came around, Fabian created the ERC20 standard, and this started the ICO boom and so forth. So personally, I think what we need to do as an industry is build products, not paper, Like make it real. You need to make products real and then add value to the ecosystem. If you add valuable contributions, then sure, financial rewards should come from that. But I don't think people should be financially rewarded purely from shaping a very good narrative and story and then launching a token.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Couldn't agree more. I think obviously I haven't been around 8 years, but in the time I have been here, I found that I've always kind of enjoyed the bear market more because it seems like there's a lot more real activity going on. There's, people actually working on cool stuff. Obviously, like still now that we're in a different market environment, things have trended in a different direction, and it's become clear that a lot of this stuff ends up falling in that latter bucket of just being needing to or wanting to just launch a token or just wanting to get returns or whatever it is. But no, yeah, I totally agree. I think we would all be a lot better off if people kind of just shipped more. um before we get into Enzo stuff and talk a little bit about what you guys are building, we have a rite of passage on Exo liquidity. You've been around a long time. That has had to have lent itself to a number of different exit liquidity stories. We have got to get your most memorable moment of when you personally were exit liquidity in crypto.
Omizi Go. I went all in on Omizi Go in 2017, 2018. So
What is
Omizi,
that?
so
I've
OMG
heard of it.
token. Yeah, Omizi Go.
Okay.
So Omizi
Oh, okay.
Go,
Okay.
yeah, like this was the layering solution or scaling solution for Ethereum back then. So I think it was called, um, I forgot the name, but it was the scaling solution for Ethereum, and I could identify very quickly that this was the future of Ethereum. Right? You need more speed, you need more TPS, you need more better transaction costs for users. I went like 99% of my portfolio all into Amazy Go, and yeah, I lost all of my money back then, purely due to Amazy Go. And there were some other
Why?
instances. Why?
Or
Because it
like
just
why
didn't
did you
scale.
go why did you go all in? Like what was your conviction?
The conviction was Ethereum needs to scale, and it was such an early concept that it made so much logical sense. To be fair, I covered myself with investing into the Rocket Pool ICO and some of these ICOs. But again, it was purely to have Ethereum more usable. And it made the most logical sense. And yeah, token dumped.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. Being over allocated to something and getting punished for it is definitely a common theme, definitely a bit of a rite of passage in this space, where me and Cito are no strangers to that. So um
I mean, there's some other stuff in 2017, right? Whenever there was like BSC, BSH, if you held Bitcoin or went into these like forks of Bitcoin, then you would also get, yeah, basically an airdrop of this new Bitcoin. And at one point, I went into the wrong fake Bitcoin, and yeah, got liquidated from that as well.
damn, some weird shit happened back then. Now that I or whenever we have stories from 2017, 2018 or earlier,
Oh
definitely a
man,
different time back then.
there was people doing Ethereum ICOs, like ERC20 token ICOs, that you would deposit Bitcoin. And then they would say, if you don't claim your funds within like 30 days of the token going live, then the company would entitle yourself to all of that BTC that you deposited. There was many weird stuff happening 7 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Teams, like, if you even want to call them teams, could get away with a lot more back then. It sounds like these days I don't. Some of this stuff is I don't want to say complex, but it definitely can be with the way people have learned to rug or the way people have learned to exit scam. Um, cool. I want to get into Enzo from a high level from there. I've heard your sort of pitch and some of the analogies you give on the network itself. Would love to just start off with like a high level overview, a little bit of an elevator pitch on what Enzo is.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, Enso's a developer tool for developers to interact with blockchain easily. So the way we do this is through intent expression. Instead of developers caring about each individual step and integration to interact with a particular protocol, you can simply express to the Enso network or the Enso API what you want to obtain of the end, whether that's an NFT, DeFi protocol, or it's a token, or it's a state, or even a combination of all the rest combined together. We then generate the call data and give it back to you.
Yeah, well, well said. Very succinct. I like the. I heard you give an analogy or like a comparison once to, I guess, like a uh, referring to Enzo as like a network state and kind of using countries or like nations as an example. That one helped it like click for me, I think. Can you spell
For
that out a
sure.
little bit?
For sure. So if you're a developer right now, you're needing to integrate every single blockchain framework, every single smart contract that lives on that blockchain framework. So you can envision each of these blockchains, whether it's Ethereum, Arbitrum, Solana, Move, whatever it may be, as a country. And each smart contract that lives inside of these countries are identified as a city. So each individual city, maybe you go from Zurich to Geneva. I'm living in Zurich right now. You go through different cities to be able to get there, right? So the prerequisite for going from Zurich to Geneva is going from city one, two, three, and four, right? Now, developers are now needing to integrate each country and each city one by one by one. Now with Enso is kind of a layer one blockchain that has information of all blockchain frameworks and all smart contracts that live on these blockchain frameworks. And in this analogy, Enso network is the world map. We know all the information and we know all the countries and all the cities. And this enables you to go to one source and say, I want to interact on this city, on this country. So I want to interact with this smart contract on Ethereum. How can I do this? And instead of you needing to go directly to Ethereum or directly to that smart contract, you can just go to one source. So instead of building all these 20 different integrations, you simply go to one. You build one integration and then you get access to the whole world, whether this is DeFi, NFTs, tokens, whatever it may be. And the way we do this is a collaborative environment. So we've got three different network participants. One is an action provider, two is a grapher, and the third one is a validator. So let's say you make a request to the Inso network, hey, I want my user to lend on Aave and then swap. You will simply express this as an RPC call. You can actually do this today through the centralized Enso API. And then underneath, the action providers are the individuals that have contributed to the network. Here's how you interact with Aave, here's how you interact with Uniswap, right? And then the graphers are listening to these requests and then combining all of these individual actions together into one solution. So it's kind of these graphers are going through the world map of each city, each country, and seeing what would solve the user's request, build the call data, validators pick this up, simulate it. So they're doing simulations. One is a security check to make sure that it does say what it's going to do. Two, if there's any vulnerabilities inside of this, as it's an open network. And then three, they're handing this off back to the requester itself. So you can envision this really as one integration fits all. You can plug and play to interact with all of the ecosystem instead of integrating this and maintaining this. How we kind of, one last thing about this, how we kind of came up with this, right? From all these pivots of Enso, the social trading, like we realized very quickly as a developer or even a person building a product or a company, you want to focus on your product. You don't want to hire a full dev shop basically internally as your team for building all these integrations. You want to focus on your users. You want to focus on user experience. You want to focus on user retention. With the Enso network, you can now simply just conceive in your mind and then release a product within the same week. And we have now over 40 projects using us. We have some incredible teams that hopefully will announce in 2 weeks that have launched fully on top of Enso.
Nice. Yeah. I on the so there's the action providers, the graphers, and then the validators. Um, that infrastructure, is that being run by you guys? Is that permissionless? Do you just provide the infrastructure and then you have either, whoever comes in or specific partners who take care of those different roles, or how does that work?
Yes, so right now in the centralized form, we're doing all three of these different participants, right? The network should be launched hopefully in the next 2, 3 months. And the way we're doing this is a gradual step of decentralization. I think a lot of projects, you don't want to release all of it at once, full decentralization. You want to test the waters, learn, see how the network reacts, what works, what doesn't. So, for example, Enso, as of today, the team adds the integrations. We find the most optimal path. We also simulate this. Our simulation tool has been open sourced. It's called Temper. This is free for anyone to use. So if you're using Tenderly, you can simply just plug and play and use this. With the Enso network now, anyone can add these integrations. So anyone can add an action. So let's say, for example, you're a wallet and you want to integrate with this new DeFi protocol and it's not available in Enso right now. But as a developer, you can see that that was requested. So what you could do is you could come along to the Enso network and simply add this new DeFi protocol. So you'll get a fee generated from all intent solutions that comprise of that individual action. So that's kind of opening it up. The relationship of like another product to do this is subgraph. So the graph, anyone can come along, create a subgraph, other people can consume it and use it, similar for actions. Then graphers, these are purely individuals focused on mathematical algos. They don't care about the data, they don't care where the data comes from, they don't care about the integrations. All they want is really just clean data, and they can build all their custom algos on top of this. So that's kind of phase 2 of the network getting more decentralized. And then the validators will be fully independent parties as well. And then network participants that want to secure the network can come along and delegate stake to these validators as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Taking a step back, you've obviously, Enzo has been around for a while, and you guys pivoted from being the social trading platform, and obviously it's been a long road to get to this point. And it sounds like there was a lot of, and the thesis behind what Enzo is now, a lot of that was informed by learnings from your process, building prior to that. Were these pain points like of needing to like not necessarily be action agnostic, of needing to worry about these like middle steps? Were these things you commonly ran into when Enzo was a social trading platform, or when you were working on something completely different? Or is this like sort of a different idea you had that wasn't super prevalent?
No, I mean, the Enso infrastructure, you got it spot on, was built from our problem. We solved our own problem. And we had built internally a full routing algo as well on chain. We'd rebuilt 1-inch Kyber swap, OX for swaps, and then also DeFi. And we realized we were building so many different products. We're building a consumer product. We're building this infrastructure for integrations. We're building infrastructure for routing. We're building infrastructure for simulations. Okay, so that part can all be classified as infrastructure, but we're also building a consumer product. So one, we had this problem ourselves, and two, really, other projects spoke to us and said, "Hey, how did you build all these DeFi integrations? We can't have all these integrations. Like, how were you able to do this safely and within that time frame?" So we said, okay, let's test the thesis. Let's launch the API. We launched it within like 2 weeks of the first request. And in the first week of launching it, we had 11 million volume. So from our own problem, we identified it to then rebuild the architecture underneath for V2. And then V2 was launched. Everyone said, how did you get all these DeFi integrations? And we just started offering it to others. Over time, we left the like B2C, the consumer interface there, and we just saw nobody was really using it. We saw really strange transactions happening, purely just airdrop farmers. And we said explicitly, we're not going to give you an airdrop. We're not going to give you any tokens for interacting with this application. Again, comes back to what we were talking about earlier. I think this industry has a real problem. You're incentivizing people to make money from using your application. Inherently doesn't make any sense. What Web2 applications are going to do this? So we kind of made that decision of leaving the interface there for 4, 5, 6 months, see what happens. Maybe it spikes one day, maybe it doesn't. And we found, like at the beginning, a spike for 100K over 2 months, pretty much zero near the end. And at that time, we'd already got a couple of $100 million flowing through the infrastructure. So eventually, we just discontinued the interface itself.
Got it. Yeah, I think I think it's common knowledge-ish, or it's like a pretty popular opinion that the best products are the ones like built from a problem that the team or the builders had prior, and kind of understanding the pain points as a user, as a developer in your case, who is going to run into all these different issues, and then working from there. um that's built some of the best products in history, some of the best companies in history. So definitely good to hear that. I was curious of the question of interoperability when I was looking into Enzo. Obviously, like, the way you guys position yourself is very chain or ecosystem agnostic. The actual network itself is its own L1. But it was my understanding that, like, it's difficult to communicate with different chains if you're bringing data in from elsewhere, from, in this case, your own L1. Um, does that create issues or challenges for you guys if you need to bring interactions to like a move VM chain versus an EVM chain versus Solana versus you know Hyperliquid, whatever else it might be?
Yeah, so right now we're focused on EVM. Eventually, we are going to do SVM, we are going to do MVM, maybe IVM, whatever new virtual machine kind of languages come out. Now, the way that we designed the smart contracts underneath, they live on each individual EVM chain. But a smart contract, the old architecture was maybe I want to build a DeFi super app, I'll have like a master contract, then I'll create a modular architecture that I can have smart contract adapters. Each adapter will be interfacing with another DeFi protocol and so forth. That doesn't scale. What scales is having one contract that's able to interact with many other smart contracts. We kind of took over a repository that was called Wayro, that was created by Nick Johnson. This was actually forked by Uniswap to then create the universal router. And what this contract allows you to do, if anyone's familiar with multi-send or multi-call, you're able to say, I want to swap from A to B, dynamically use the output from B into a function called 2, 3, 4, or X percentage on each one at the point of execution, right? This is a fancy way of basically saying you have a smart contract, you can bundle calls together and interact with all of DeFi, all of NFTs, and so forth on that individual chain. So on the executional side, not really an issue. On the having people contribute to the Enso network itself, kind of having as much information as we can. Now, you can envision these as static calls. Somebody coming along and saying, here's how you execute an Avid, here's how you execute an Euler on Morpho, whatever that may be. Now, these function signatures don't inherently change for that particular version. What we do is we wrap them up into a standard. So let's say Aave, Morpho, Euler, they all have different function signatures. One could be take my money, other one is like lend my money, like money lend my money, right? They're all different. But for a developer to interact with all of them conveniently, all they need to know is Aave.lend, Morpho.lend, Euler.lend. So we're able to kind of put that inside of the Enso network and brand it under a particular action type. So that's for the execution. And that kind of scales over time in a way that developers don't need to conform to standards. They can just build what they want, and then the wrapper of Enso kind of goes around that. And that makes those protocols usable. Now, on the informational side, we also have validators that are constantly indexing information from all of the individual protocols and also on the EVM chains itself. We have this most up-to-date information. This is also consumed by the graphers to then, let's say, build the intent solutions across this map. So we don't inherently see an issue of collecting or interacting, but again, we are open to seeing what problems arise.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Given like I guess it's very clear in your messaging that Enzo is like agnostic to ecosystems, to chains. You guys are abstracting any action, any arbitrary action, regardless of where. So it's interesting curious to hear about the sort of differences. I think interoperability is uh, still to this day a very commonly discussed issue, has been for a long time.
I mean, that was like, if I can add on this, like, that's the whole point of Ethereum, right? Interruptibility, composability, right? 8 years ago, it was not known by that many people a smart contract could interact with another smart contract. This took DeFi summer to create that mindshare, that awareness that smart contract A could interact with smart contract B. That's kind of the whole purpose of blockchain technology is composability. Now we can create these composable applications on each individual chain, and now these developers are needing to integrate one by one and each blockchain framework. It doesn't scale, it doesn't make sense. Why don't developers just integrate one thing to then get access to every single application?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think part of the reason why like maybe this stuff is not as well not as much like talked about on CT, or like at least for me not in CT and in the group chats I'm in, is because this is you're solving a developer problem, right? And as a user, as someone who, you know, spends most of his time talking to other users, we're not familiar with like the same pain points as developers. So when you say like abstracting away different actions, and if you have to go from action 1 to 4, instead of needing to go 1, 2, 3, you can just go one with Enzo, you can just go 1 to 4. When I hear that example, what I think of is like, I think of like a particularly less traveled like bridge route. If I'm using like Li-Fi and I'm going from Ethereum to some other chain, swapping assets at the same time, so going from like USDC to USDT, I have to approve, bridge, approve, or sorry, yeah, approve, bridge, approve on the other chain, and then swap. That would be 3 actions or whatever it was. Is that when you say like abstracting multi-step actions into one step, are there any like particularly salient examples you can think of that developers maybe run into that users may not be super aware of?
I mean, this is DeFi, right? If you're interacting with DeFi, the alpha is the Russian doll method: combine, 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 combine. And if you're simply just depositing on Aave, you're not generating as much yield as you could. You could take that ADI, put it into another protocol. So a very good example that we like to use is if you want to generate a multitude of APY, you'll interact with a protocol like Beefy. Beefy may require an Aura LP. An Aura LP may require Balancer LP. Balancer LP may require 3 tokens. So you're looking around at 4 different interfaces, maybe 12, 13 different transactions, including the approval. You're a user. You knew your outcome was, I want to deposit into this Beefy position, right? And I had my USDC. But in today's world of user experience, I'm needing to go to 4 different interfaces, do many different approvals, track the individual ratios for each LP pool to then deposit a particular amount, track this in an Excel, take that LP, approve it. Before you know it, you've spent over 30 minutes and you've lost. Most people probably stop option number 2. So this is a very simple example. And with kind of blockchain as a whole, and composability being literally one of the main selling points personally for me, comprising and combining many different protocols together to make a seamless user experience is better for the user. So, you know, like a very simple thing that we tried and our users loved on the BTC stuff, like was actually organic behavior, ironically, in this part, was a shopping cart. You know, if you go to Amazon, you add something to your basket, you add another part to your basket. You want to buy, I don't know, headphones, you want to buy a cup, you want to buy a mouse. You would never you would never think, okay, I need to buy one by one by one by one. Whereas now with Enso, you can actually combine all of this into one transaction. So not only will it find the most optimal route to go to A to B, you can also then combine all of these with other primitives together. So an example, you can maybe go from USDC into this Beefy position that would normally be 14 or 13, 14 different transactions. And then maybe you could also use that LP from Beefy to then lend on a protocol. Then you can borrow, then you can swap and combine this in more a shopping cart style. So there's a lot of benefits for the user. And I think inherently the benefit of ENSO over time, the users don't need to know about us. Like, we don't want them to know about us. We just want to enable developers to build a really seamless product and to build it very quickly, to be able to release and test product market fit and give the best user experience to the users in the end. We're happy to be in the background enabling all of this.
Hmm. Yeah, the beefy example is kind of crazy when you really think about it. Like the amount of context and like research and just like mental illness you have to understand everything that goes into that is just absurd. And like we take it for granted because at least like being DeFi native, you take it for granted, but a normal person would never be able to access that yield realistically. Like there's no I don't even think there are like tutorials or like guides on how to access like that example specifically. Let alone like you can't really work backwards and figure it out from there. I mean, you could, but it's highly likely you make mistakes along the way. Um, and
And
just
what
not ideal for anyone.
agreed. And even as you probably know yourself as like a Web3 native, maybe you have an LP position or maybe you have a token. I still haven't seen as of today an interface you can go to and then put this token and it will show you all the steps across all the universe of blockchain of where this could actually go to and the yield that could be generated. Maybe once you go to the beefy LP, like we think that's a hard extension, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's another 10 layers that people can go to that we just haven't presented to the user just yet.
Yeah, yeah, totally makes sense. In that example specifically, I reminded of like not a super used feature. I guess I used it a lot more back when yield farming was bigger. But when some protocols have like a zap function where you are able to go from any one asset directly into whatever LP. Um, is that on the back end? Is that usually like them just kind of like roughly like bundling those transactions together, like almost in like a barbaric way, versus like, or is it like them throwing those actions together, or is that something that like Enzo could be abstracting away in the future? Like, would you guys be the ones who provide the zap function to these different protocols?
I mean, we do this as of today. Like, this is kind of one of
Cool.
these small use cases of Enso. So we have DeFi protocols. We have a great partner called Steer. They're an AMM. If you want to LP into their positions with one token, we'll find the most optimal route from swapping from token A into two tokens and then depositing into the LP. So that Zap functionality is also there. Now, this Zap or bundling functionality can get more extreme. So we have a partner called IPOR. You can deposit with one token, go into two, take that LP, delegate stake that LP into another pool, boost up APY, and then take that delegate stake back over to IPOR. And this is a combination of zapping, direct depositing, state transitions, delegate calls, and so forth, all within one transaction. So to answer your question, yeah, people can do this already as of today.
Nice. Yeah, I've ran into that feature multiple times. I guess I never knew what was kind of going on the back end there. Um, that brings me to another point that I had just when looking around. If you go to like the Enzo Finance ecosystem page, there's a bunch of different stuff on here. Lots of different integrations, like you said, that was a big priority for you guys. And I'm curious as to like the impact across these, dozens of different DeFi protocols. And you guys have done some odd billions, a dozen billion, something like that in volume, and hundreds of thousands, in tens filled already. But across the different integrations you have, where do you feel like having Enzo integrated with the protocol has really had a significant impact on the end user or on the developer? And if there's one in specific that maybe doesn't exist yet, a particular integration or integration with a type of protocol, I would be interested to hear that as well, that you're looking forward to abstracting actions for.
So There's two that come to mind. I can't say them just yet because it's not it's not public. But you can envision like a DeFi automation tool. So I think DeFi is complex, and having to manage your funds of, let's say, APY drops, migrate from that protocol to that protocol, or if ETH drops, then leverage long or leverage short, whatever it may be, and kind of combining all these different actions of these Lego blocks, literally in the ecosystem, into an automation template, I think is really, really powerful. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we can kind of say something around this. Another one that we found is iPor. With the manual flow of interacting with iPor without Enso was taking 8, 9 different transactions. That's really not a good user experience. Now going in iPor, they can simply just drag over, here's my APY that I want to get, here's the amount of token I want to put in, boom, one transaction, super seamless. Again, our goal is just to be in the background, enable this clean user experience, and users should be able to interact with the chain itself very easily. I think where Enso is going to sit in the next couple of years, I think it's going to be more indie developers, and I think we're going to see a large transition within this industry. And if we don't, the industry is going to fail, in my opinion, truthfully. I mean, I'm putting some spicy takes today. If we're constantly just going to launch tokens after a year and a half of our product that doesn't have product market fit, I think we have collectively failed as an industry. I think where Enso can help this industry really grow is just shipping a product. Don't write paper, ship a product. And I think that is the most valuable thing that we can actually contribute to this ecosystem, where developers that have an idea, instead of going and raising $4 or $5 million, they can just spend a weekend and ship it using Enso and then see if it works, see if it doesn't work. Okay, that didn't work, sweet. Okay, maybe next weekend I try something different. I can use Enso to build this new product that other people haven't thought of. So I think right now we're very focused on DeFi, right? And we bring that supreme user experience, we bring that nice usability of DeFi automation and all these different use cases. But I think over time it will really go to the route of newer developers that want to ship products and not just large tokens.
Yeah, definitely a spicy take there. That this is something we need to address. Otherwise, maybe we can't move past it. I think that's really like good to hear, and conviction behind a product like this is that, because most people, like I said, this is like a disconnected issue, I think, in terms of user awareness, like most developer issues are. I think users are very unaware of developers and their time, and as they kind of should be when you're conditioned to use products that pay you and just kind of chase the dollar above all else. Like users aren't conditioned to care about the developer. They're just looking for their bottom line. And that I definitely agree that needs to push back in the other direction to kind of help move the needle forward here. And always good to hear people actually like actively solving that, actively trying to get after that. What about integrations that you maybe don't have yet that you would like to see, or you think are still like needed, are still much needed in DeFi? Obviously, you guys are still expanding. You're still trying to cast a wider net. But is there any type of interaction or any type of protocol that you feel is missing right now?
All of them, man. Like our main our main moat is we will have all of DeFi and all smart contracts available through Enso. So we're only at the cusp. We maybe have 100 integrated. Let me check DeFi Llama. I think there's probably, I don't know, let's check. It's going to take a while to scroll down. Let's just say rough number. So 4,000 listed. I'm pretty sure there's over 20,000. And we want to have all of them. We want to be agnostic. So we don't care if a protocol is legitimate or not. If you want to choose to offer that to your user, that's your own choice, right? If you want to go for the blue chips, or you want to go for this random yield farm offering you 20,000 APY that may run in 2-3 days, But you can build an automation tool on top of this to say, hey, enter into this 20% APY. Maybe you use a security analysis tool that detects if it's actually been rugged, and you can front run that and then automate your withdrawals. We want to be fully agnostic. So to answer your question, we haven't even started. We need every single DeFi protocol to be available through ENSO. And the way we do that is one, we have an incredible team that's been part of the space for years. We build these integrations, and then we also kind of open up the network where anyone can add to this as well.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I like that. Unrelated, I don't know if you saw, I tried to blur my background so my roommate walking by wouldn't show. It did not work at all. It put him directly into focus. No, that's awesome. That's like to have such like a broad, like a grand vision being the first step. I mean, you mentioned earlier like newer, I guess, like in essence, maybe even like scrappier developers looking to get started. First point of contact, or first, like one of the first tools they use being Enzo, and then also casting a wide enough net to cover all 4,000 whatever it is existing protocols as well. That's, you know, that would be insane. That would be huge. I don't have a great understanding of the competitors, if there are any. I know there's obviously other teams working on intents in different ways. Sometimes it's intent centric design, sometimes it's solver networks. Who do you guys view as your competitors right now?
Directly, none.
None.
Because we're building this shared network state for interacting with all smart contracts and all blockchain frameworks. The intents ecosystem, yeah, just give like a background of an intent. Our definition of an intent, which is the most pragmatic one in my opinion, is I have A and I want B, C, and D, and I don't care how to get that. Now, these intent networks that are spawning and launching, inherently all they are is a job bulletin board. So you're going there, I have A and I want B, and I'm looking for other people to obtain this for me, and these people are called solvers. Now, this could be related to going to LinkedIn jobs and posting a job, right? But in the ecosystem as of today, there's probably only 20, 25 solvers in the whole ecosystem of this industry. We have more intent networks than we do solvers. And these solvers are primarily focused on token swaps. So our vision of intents is not just tokens. It's about DeFi, it's about NFTs, it's about any arbitrary smart contract call that maybe we don't understand just yet. That's why we call it arbitrary smart contract call, that you can interact through ENSO. So direct competitors, none really. We enable these networks to succeed. We are going to be the first, let's say, intent engine underneath fueling these intents. A lot of people like to go for the top layer, but I see more value of actually fueling other protocols to exist.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. In the limited research I've done in the intent space, it definitely seems like most of the design mechanisms are focused on specific protocols, and yeah, I mean the issue of like solver diversity is pretty seems to be pretty drastic these days. I mean, I think if you I don't remember whether it was Uniswap X or CowSwap, but like 80 to 85% of their intents were being filled by like Wintermute. Um, so definitely pushing the needle on that, you know, as if the problem wasn't difficult enough. Just another hat to throw in there. I would like to talk a little bit about the token if we can. I know you guys have announced your CoinList listing. I don't think there's a date on that yet, but and then obviously, you know, you go to your website and you're greeted with this. You go to the tokenomics section on your docs and you're greeted with this ear blasting song, whatever it was. I don't remember. How are you guys thinking about like decentralizing the protocol? Obviously, you know, for someone who's been around as long as you have, I'd imagine you hold decentralization and being permissionless pretty close to your ethos. I'm wondering how you're thinking about the process of going from where you're at now to being a decentralized protocol, with while also avoiding some of the pitfalls we talked about earlier with, you know, misaligning incentives between users and teams and kind of getting users focused on the wrong stuff.
Yeah, I actually forgot we had a GIF with music on that page on the
Yeah,
token economics. I just
it's
checked.
it is incredibly loud. I don't know if it's just me, but the first time I went to that page, I definitely got a little bit of hearing damage.
This makes it fun though.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I mean, so we are going to do the first auction on CoinList in the last 4 years. Solana have done an auction there, Flow done an auction. We have a research piece that's already live. We haven't made a tweet. I think the tweet should be going live this week. So some alpha, if you go to the Medium of Enso Finance, you will see a full research piece on Fjord LBPs versus auctions, Dutch auctions. The results are quite shocking, to be honest. Let me find out the link so I can share it. So you're looking at an average downturn performance in Fjord LBPs of 87.63% on token performance. On Dutch auctions, you're looking at plus 97% of performance. So kind of the way we're designing this token is to one, distribute as much as we can, two, also to have real price discovery, and three, some degree have a mechanism that ensures some degree of success. Obviously, we can't define that ourselves. There's no tricks we can do. But again, looking at the methodologies of token launches, the auction method looks the best for us. How we kind of bring this out into more decentralization, again, multiple different network participants, validators, action providers, graphers, and then these participants can then also obtain the answer token to then be part of the network itself. I think that part I'll say we'll release more information on that. But again, have a look at this new article of an internal researcher, Enso, who spent a couple of weeks going through every single Fjord LBP from the beginning, every single auction that's occurred, and it's very, very shocking, the performances. You have projects that have raised over $100 million and they've got a 98% performance, 94.26. Other one raised 27.9 million, performance down 97%. One raised 22 million, minus 100%. Another one raised 21 mil, minus 99, minus 95 at 20. So it's just, there's a common trend with Fjord LVPs that you are getting wrecked by investing into them.
Yeah, this looks very interesting. I'm gonna have to give this a read later today. I think there was definitely a time when everyone and their mother were launching on Fjord for, I don't know, a good month or two, and people were just clamoring about the fees they were doing and how the model was at the time good, good market conditions, and like if you don't zoom out more than a week, then like they were all doing pretty good. It's interesting to hear about like actual analysis, putting all this stuff together and looking at the LBP model a little bit more under a little bit more of like a proper quantitative lens. Definitely going to have to look into that. And then you mentioned regarding the centralization, more network participants. You guys have action providers, validators, and the last one was
Graphers.
graphers, I believe. Yeah. Is there any sort of priority among those three? Like, do you think it's more important to kind of get greater diversity in one versus the other sooner?
So at the beginning of the network, it will be validators, then it'll be action providers, then it'll be graphers. And validators will be securing the whole chain itself, so we need those participants. For Enso to succeed and be this one universal gateway to interact with all blockchain and to build your applications very easily and quickly, then action providers become very, very important, right? If we have this grand vision of enabling developers to launch products interacting with any blockchain framework, with any smart contract, with any primitive in a couple of hours or even days, you need to have that information available, right? As I was saying earlier, we have 100 plus DeFi protocols. DeFi Llama has 3,000 plus. We're not even 10% there, right? So if we want to give the full availability to build whatever products you want to do, then the action providers come really, really important to kind of give that distribution channel. The graphers itself, I think over time it will be a similar centralization issue of the solver market. So you'll have people that are very, very good at particular algos, and over time you'll maybe have 15, 20 participants that will be part of it, and that will be enough for the network. Let's see. But the challenge of the solver market right now is not because people don't know how to build algos. They don't know how to build indexers, integrate smart contract audits, backend infrastructure, geo redundancy, and then last but not least, the algos, right? So we separate these roles where a grapher can just focus on algos. So in the future, we may see really like mass competitions of people building algos as a hackathon and then release that on the Enso network. I think over time it will really only be 15, 20, but the more the better, right? The better distribution for the better routes, for the better gas execution for the users themselves.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense intuitively following that sort of sequence. Um, we are coming up on time here. I want to try not to go over if we can help it. I'm curious if there's anything you can give us that we can look forward to for the rest of the year. You guys obviously, you talked about some information about different integrations going live in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, there's the whole CoinList thing. What's your priority over the next 4 to 6 months? Let's call it.
Customers, is we our ethos is really build products, not paper. And we want to enable you to build products very easily, conveniently using Enso. So if our customers need an integration, you just send us a message. You can message me on Telegram. My Telegram is Connor_Enso. If you're looking to build an application on top of DeFi, whatever it may be, just send me a text. And if we can help you, that's our main priority. There was a picture going around on Twitter a couple of weeks ago when I was at ECC. I was at this conference and the customer was launching during kind of one of our talks. And I was like, okay, no, I need to leave. Customer's the main priority. We're going to sit there, we're going to fix, we're going to help, right? So customers first. Obviously, we're going to continue to do the coin list and then launch the network as well. And we want the network to get as much distribution as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Customer being number one priority, kind of focusing on integrations, on developers, on making everybody's, making the top of the funnel, making their life easiest, and then, watching that trickle down to users, applications, just DeFi as a whole, crypto as a whole. I think that's great. That's really good to hear. Um, is there any dates you can give us for some of that stuff for any?
No,
I figured. Yeah.
soon,
Had to ask
soon.
though. That's okay. Cool, man. Well, I want to start to wrap up here. I I guess you kind of already gave the closing remarks of call to action being if this is something you need, if you're a developer, get in contact, try and see how this can make your protocol better, make your users' life easier. Is there anything else that you think the audience should know? Any calls to action for the people here?
Build products, not paper. I've said it about 5 times. Build a
Build products, not
product.
paper.
Join our Telegram chat. It's Enso_intent_engine. You can go to Twitter, Enso Finance. You can message me on Telegram as well. Yeah, we want to support you building products. Just send us a message and we'll help you.
Cool, man. Yeah, great to hear. Hope that gets to someone who will make that happen. Perfect. Well, that was Eggs Liquidity episode 81. Thanks again, Connor. Gave us a lot of interesting stuff to think about, to look forward to. A little bit of real hopium, not just price based hopium. It's always good to get it in the form of actual like productivity. So thank you for that. And yeah, that will be it for today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And